We're here in Fort Worth at the Global Marijuana March put on by DFW NORML. I'm here with Shaun McAlister, the Executive Director of the group. And Shaun, tell us about putting this event together.
Well, howdy doobie, Texas Cannabis Report. Thanks for coming out and covering this event like you always do. We love you at DFW NORML. This is our third year in Fort Worth for the Global Marijuana March. The first year was in 2013. We had around 400 or 500 people show up to the event. Then last year we exploded with over 2,000 attendees. And this year we're really hoping for almost 5,000 people to show up and publicly break the law in civil disobedience by smoking marijuana, walking through the streets of Fort Worth with a police escort from the Hyde Park in Fort Worth where we're at now to the Tarrant County Courthouse, that is that historic building in the Fort Worth skyline. And we're going to be there for an hour protesting, speaking out against marijuana prohibition, and demanding an urgent and immediate change to Texas policy this legislative session.
Now, in years past, the city hasn't really worked that well with you in getting things together. Of course, this year they planned a meeting with you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this year they reached out as the event was approaching and said we'd like to go ahead and schedule some FaceTime with the police department, with the city planners, and make sure that we're all on the same page about this event. And it was wonderful. Whenever you walk into a situation like that, you wonder what the temperature of the room is going to be. You wonder what kind of attitude these officers or these city employees are going to have, and it was just overwhelmingly positive, the experience. Everybody was friendly and joking around and just really wanting to work together to ensure that public safety was achieved with this event, that we were able to have our First Amendment event, which was to come out and speak out against marijuana prohibition. And it was interesting because throughout the discussion they had said, we've grown so big, we're going to have this expanded permit that's going to cost these extra dollars, which we didn't know about at the time, but the community came forth and helped us afford to be able to do that. And as a result, we were able to make sure that we were going to have, instead of the 6 or 7 police officers that were assigned to our duty last year, the city has assigned us 30 Fort Worth police officers to ensure that we're safe as we're going to walk down the street doing what we're doing. And they're on bikes. You see there's no paddy wagons here or anything. They're not gearing up to try to lock a whole bunch of people up. They're gearing up for thousands of people to walk through the streets and do what we're about to do. They want to make sure we're all safe when we do it. And it's just really kind of an empowering thing to know that the police and the city are willing to work hand in hand with groups like ours, because we represent the will of so many Texans, so many taxpayers, that it honestly feels like the cities are coming around faster than our representatives, all of our lawmakers.
Yeah, DFW NORML has put on some of the biggest marches in Texas, whether it was the previous global marijuana marches or if it was the march last year in Dallas. It takes a lot of resources to put these events on, and I know you've talked about wanting to expand and basically go out and do some advertising and get out there in front of people and get people aware of what's going on. How do you do that?
So it's really about inspiring people to feel like their donations are going to be well spent in a way that's actually going to be impactful. As soon as you start talking about a billboard or a television commercial on a channel like Fox News for marijuana, all of a sudden people are going to be thinking, oh wow, maybe that $5 donation I was going to make, maybe I can make a $10, maybe I can make a $25. And you give them that idea, that inspiration, that hope that maybe we're going to do something different because we're finally able to afford to do something different. And when we do something different, guess what's going to happen? We're going to reach new people that we've been unable to reach this entire time, despite having this event every year, despite having Billboard last year. There's still millions of Texans in the area, in this area alone, that have no idea what's going to be happening here today. And it's just unfortunate that we couldn't reach every single one of them. But with people's donations, with their generosity, we're able to spread our wings and kind of expand and do something that is going to make Texans think about reforming marijuana policy. It's going to make the people who are against us uncomfortable when they see that commercial on Fox News, their safe haven of conservative viewpoints, and all of a sudden there's a commercial about whole plant medical marijuana program coming to Texas, and maybe featuring a quote with Greg Abbott saying, I'll veto anything that comes to my desk about marijuana. Well, we'll see about that when millions of Texans get pissed off because you're the sole voice of dissent that's going to keep medical marijuana from passing if it were to hit the governor's desk, if that bill were. And so events like this are about getting people to come out and feel like this has a chance. We're not going to be last in Texas as long as we're willing to be loud and proud and stand out and be heard and stop being afraid and stop asking for permission.
Well, you say you want people to get involved. Exactly. How did they go about doing that?
Well, some of the most obvious ways to get involved: become a card-carrying member of an organization like NORML. It doesn't have to be the DFW chapter. There's chapters all over the state of Texas. But beyond that, you can make sure that whenever you have a conversation with somebody about marijuana, that you're coming at it from the perspective of somebody who is actually educated about the plant and the process and some of the obstacles that are in the way. You know, a lot of people are open to this type of conversation, even if they may in their own minds think that they're against it. Many conservatives are willing to have a conversation about this, and there's your opportunity to have their heart open up to you, and you can reach them if you're prepared to have that conversation. So being ready, having something meaningful to say, whether it be a personal story of your own or somebody like my friend Vincent Lopez to talk about, who it's a shame that this state is going to continue to deny people that need this plant, this medicine, and having something to say is going to give somebody something more to think about than, oh, that stoner just wants to go and smoke weed. And then you take that attitude, you take that knowledge and that experience, and you make a phone call to your representative's office, and you urge them to support marijuana law reform in some way. Specifically ask for a bill. You know, go and find out these bills, find out which one is the most important to you, and to call your representative and say, hey, I am your constituent. I pay taxes in your district. I want you to support this, not next session, not when it's politically convenient, not when you're no longer a freshman in office, but right freaking now. And if more Texans stand up and feel empowered to do that, then the people in the Capitol, they're going to hear from more Texans than ever before on this topic, and all of a sudden, they're going to start to consider this a little bit more than I think they would have when it was just those same people all time and time again contacting them and saying, you know, beating that marijuana drum. When they're hearing from Grandma Gladys, somebody who never bothers to pick up the phone and call the office about marijuana, that's when we're making an impact in Austin.
And you can find all of those bills on Texas Cannabis Report. Thank you, Shaun, and thanks for DFW and all that they do.
Thank you, Texas Cannabis Report, and I just want to shout out to anybody listening to this. If you weren't here, I want you to know that this is not the last time we will march in the state of Texas. More marches are coming. Please stay tuned. Do not be afraid of this plant, and do not be afraid to be a part of the change. Herb's the word, my friends.